Hey guys, it's Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, we're getting into doing some more service projects. And right now, we're going to be working on another Penn Squidder Model 140. This is the second of two that I picked up recently, and they also came with a bunch of extra spools and boxes as well. We've got one of the ones that is the oversized box that has an extra spool in it. Okay, so this reel, it's been used somewhat. You can see there's some scars and marks on it. Overall, it's in really good shape. The handle, unfortunately, has been bent, and it's got a lot of corrosion damage here. This torpedo handle is seized, and it won't really turn. This bearing here is also very, very tight. So I think one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to hit this with some WD-40, some of these parts here. We're going to make sure that we don't break anything in the process, but we're going to show you how to break down this reel, how to clean it, how to lube it, and do some rebuild on it. So we're going to start here with the handle, and we're going to get that set screw out. But yeah, I just recently worked on the other one of these that I picked up, and it came out beautifully. And that one was a little cleaner than this one, I think. I don't think it was fished quite as much for one reason or another. So we're going to take that off. So yeah, this we're going to need to spend a little bit of time with here. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to bend this back quite right or not. We'll have a look at that a little later. But first we want that penetrating oil to sink in. And on that note, I believe we'll deploy a little bit of this PB blaster on there too, just for good measure, just to help that along. I'll break that down. And in the meantime, we'll take the rest of this apart. So we've got a collar in here that has to come out, and these sometimes have a tendency to kind of get stuck in there. There's our collar. Okay, and then we've got a thumb screw here that we got to back out. So this is a take apart design, typical for a surf casting style conventional reel like this. Now I had trouble with the last one too, getting this loose, and that's not an uncommon problem with these. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak some more WD-40 in here for a little while, let that sink in, come back in a few minutes, and we'll see if we can't free this up. Okay, so we're back, and we were able to free this side plate up now finally. So there it is there. Yeah, it's pretty dry in there. We're going to clean that up, of course. And we're going to take our spool out. So this has air brake fins on the plastic spools that came with this reel. That was the big deal about buying this reel, is that you could get those air brake fins, and it would help you when you were doing long surf casts and stuff like that. So once again, we're going to get in with the WD-40 here. Let that do some magic. But yeah, most of the chrome here I'd say is in pretty good standing order. Just some scratches here and there, nothing unusual. Normally when you find reels of this age, they're usually not in that good a shape anymore, just because they were used so heavily, and a lot of them were not taken care of very well either, for that matter. You know, it's real simple to take good care of a reel like this. You know, all you got to do is, after you get it home from a saltwater trip of any kind, you just rinse it off with some warm water, and it's a real simple thing to do. And you know, from time to time, do some basic maintenance like what we're doing right now here, essentially. So we've got a side bearing here, a ball bearing right here, and it's actually quite tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this paper towel over this here, so we don't mar it up. And we're going to loosen that up, just like so, because we want to make sure that we have a look at this bearing. Soak that with some more penetrating oil, and then we're gonna take a Phillips head screwdriver. It's really almost impossible to see this on camera, but you want to ensure that this bearing is spinning freely. If it feels rough of any kind, really, it might need some more penetrating oil. Then again, the bearings may be rusted and it might have to be replaced. And these are expensive to replace. I don't think you can get the original part, but you can get a substitute, I believe, at mysticparts.com. And the last time I looked, I think you were looking upwards of like $25, give or take a few. So you really want to take good care of these bearings for sure. Okay, so we're going to flood this with a little bit of Real-X oil. And then we're also going to put some oil on the threads right here, because these are really, really fine threads. And we're just going to start that up like so. Okay, and then we're also going to take some Penn Precision blue grease to our clicker tongue, respectively. I'm also going to put a little bead of oil right here on that thumb screw thread. That has a tendency to rust out real easily. And just a light little film of WD-40, and that'll help ensure that this is going to break free easier next time. Okay, so we've got our spool. I'm going to clean this off. Take some 4-0 steel wool to this. But yeah, in the days of earlier bait casting surf reels, I mean, this was one of the first ones that became extremely popular. There were others that predated it, but they didn't have all the hot rod that this one had between the air brake fins and the stainless steel ball bearings both sides. That was a big deal. Plus the take apart design, which was really key and important. Okay, so blue grease here as well as here. And we're going to pop that back in place like so. Put that off to the side. Now we're going to get into the rest of the reel here. So we've got our 4 screws here. And we're going to take each one of these out one by one. So we've got 2 fully threaded screws here at the base. And then 2 partially threaded screws on the top. Yeah, when I found these 2 squidders on Craigslist with all those extra spools and everything, I had to jump on them right away. It was $40. $40 for the whole lot. And with the reels in as decent shape as they were, I just said, yeah, that's worth it. Just trying to find parts for these is becoming harder and harder as time goes by. Okay, so yeah, we've got a lot of old gummed up grease down here, and we've got our dog and dog spring. Okay, so we're gonna get all these parts taken apart here, of course, and we're gonna clean all this up. So we got a pinion gear and yoke. We've got an eccentric jack. We've got a couple of springs right here. Yeah, we're loaded with all kinds of grease in here indefinitely. So we're gonna hose that down, let that sink in for a little bit. We're gonna get some more here and here. Okay, we'll start with getting our clutch kit off of here. Got a spacer washer that just snapped and broke on us, so we're going to replace this. I've got a bunch of those kicking around. That's okay. And then we've got our bridge and sleeve assembly. And as part of the service, we want to take this set pin out of here, which I'm going to attempt to do on camera if I can. Yeah, so you push that out with a little pick tool. It's going to stick out like that. Take your needle nose and pull that pin out gently. Just like so. And we're going to clean this up. We're going to get some 4-0 steel wool to this shaft here. Yeah, a lot of the time this is overlooked when folks go to service these kinds of reels, and it's important to have this working because it creates a sluggish kind of turn basically over time when grease gets dried up on there and whatnot. Okay, so we'll clean the sleeve as well. Q-tip, clean out the inside. And we'll take a brass wire brush to these threads as well. Blue grease on the shaft. Back on. The sleeve, the pin will set back in position just like so. I usually like to take a mallet such as this. Tap that back in. You want that to be nice and flush. Okay, so that's all ready to go there. Now we've got our clutch kit, which is in very, very dirty shape right now. So we're going to get all this old grease off, and we're going to pull these washers out one by one. We're going to see what we have here. So yeah, it would appear that we've got, we had a leather washer here that disintegrated is what happened. Okay, and this is common. Luckily enough, the other reel that I picked up didn't have this problem, but this reel certainly does have this problem. So this is what happens. Okay, you've got a cracked leather washer right here. Okay, and that's not an uncommon issue at all. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to clean up these metal washers, and we're going to have to see if we can find some replacements, which I'm pretty sure I have. Keep taking these out and seeing what kind of shape they're in. But yeah, if one is like that, they probably are all, yeah, see, just completely snapped off. Okay. So yeah, when you get to this point, these have to be replaced, obviously. So that's what we're going to do as part of the service. And this one, you know, it's still together, but I don't trust it because I can see it's actually starting to crack. It's hard to see, but we're not going to trust that even in the slightest. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to continue cleaning real quick with the main gear. We're going to spray these parts down. We're going to let that penetrating oil do its magic in there. And then we're going to clean out these gear teeth really well. At a certain point, I will pause and go fetch some replacement washers for that drag kit, and also another spacer washer as well. But yeah, if you've got leather washers and they're not cracked and they're not showing any signs or evidence of cracking, then you can reuse them. There's nothing wrong with that. But once they start giving up the ghost like that, it's time to replace them indefinitely. So, and then, you know, we've got kind of a little bit of a roughness here, so we want to make sure that we clean that off. That's where the 4.0 steel wool kind of comes in handy. I'm doing this off camera, just kind of off of the shop rag here, just because it's a nice flat surface. Okay, a little 4.0 steel wool, and that makes that good as new. So we'll work with that. Just going to hose this down once more, just get any particles or anything out of there that we don't want in there. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to pause the video. We'll be back in a moment with those parts. Okay, so we're back, and we've got some fresh Carbon-Tex HT100 drag washers that we're going to replace those old leather ones with, and we've also got a backup spacer washer to replace this broken one. Okay, this is a common problem with these reels, and you know, with some extra parts like this, it can all be remedied quite easily. So out with the old, in with the new. So we're going to put on the spacer washer first. We've cleaned up our main drag, and we're going to take the blue grease to the drag kit, main gear, I should say. And you can actually use blue grease on the drag washers if they're HT100 drag washers. That's actually what I believe they recommend, the manufacturer. But using star drag grease is also a common practice. Cal's star drag grease. I've got a tiny little cup of it here. Probably gonna have to get some more eventually. You can do either or. As long as they are this kind of washer and not the leather washers. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to use the Cal's Star Drag grease, and we're just going to put a light film of it on both sides here, very light. Set that down in there, and then we've got our metal washer. We spent some time off camera cleaning up these metal washers because they were a little discolored and had some old grease and stuff like that on them, and so we're going to put that on and just gently rub that around in there. That's going to help protect those. Keyed washer goes in next, like so. And then we've got one more Carbon Tex fiber washer. And I should say these are actually just HT100s, but they're a Carbon Tex style fiber, more or less. Okay, and then last washer goes on top. Tension washer goes on top of that. Okay, and your bridge and clutch kit are done essentially. You want to clean this dog off, and you've got that really tiny dog spring right there. You don't want to lose that. And there's a little bit of grit or something caught up in there. Take that out. Okay, so now we got to clean out this inner body here, this inner housing. We've got a lot of old grease buildup in here. And that's also another thing that happens is sometimes the grease will break down, and it'll break down those leather washers as well. That's not an uncommon practice or uncommon thing to have happen. It's just something that goes with the territory with these reels. Okay, so we've been using some WD-40, some penetrating oil here to break down these things in here, and I'm probably going to go to the extent to hitting it once more and then using just a cheap toothbrush just to kind of break this down. And take a rag to this and clean it up. And we're going to flood this with some oil, that bearing right there. We're going to take some blue grease to this eccentric roller, like so. Okay, and then we've got some other parts here that we got to clean up real quick. So we've got a pinion yoke, and it's on a little bit on the rough side here, so we're gonna clean these parts up here. The eccentric jack looks okay. Pinion gear definitely needs a little bit of clean up with the brush. Yeah, a little WD-40 and some basic household things can go a long way with a fishing reel, so relatively inexpensive stuff. Also just seeing some leftover things in the body there. Okay, so I like to check these gear teeth and make sure that they're clean and free of of any old grease. And then, we've got a roughness on here. It's almost kind of like a sandpaper, and so we're gonna take that off with some of that 4-0 steel wool, some of that discoloration. Just kind of break that down a little bit. And there might be some folks that say, well, wouldn't it just be easier just to order a bunch of new parts? Sure, you can do that if you can find them. Mystic Parts still has some of these parts, but they don't have all of them. And, you can seek out a parts reel if you'd rather, but it's all going to cost money. And, these are basic things that you can do here. So far, the only parts that we've changed is mainly to that clutch kit and that spacer washer. But if you had to order those online, after tax and shipping, that would cost you at least $10, I bet. So, it all adds up in the end. Okay, so pinion yoke we've cleaned up some, and it's smoother now, and that's all that really counts. And so we're going to go back in with these springs here, like so. And I'm actually going to wet these down just with a little bit of that WD-42 as well. And we'll take the blue grease to the pinion yoke, like so, both sides. And then we've also got the pinion gear, which we're going to deploy some grease here as well. Put that in place like that. Put that in position like that. And then we've got our eccentric jack, and we're going to make sure that we hit some blue grease here. And gently press down on this. Get that in position like that. Now we're ready to put our bridge and clutch kit back in position. And what I like to do is I like to start it off like this, and then you can gently start rolling that bridge around, and then you want to get to a point where you stop right here. You want to take a fully threaded screw and make sure that it's been soaked in some oil, some penetrating oil of some kind. And you're going to get that started, and then you've got your dog, ratchet, and spring, and you want to get those lined up, get those holes lined up here, like so. And then you just kind of have to gently push back on that spring. And you just got to be careful because you don't want it to go flying away on you. This is the design where it's stuck to, it sinks into the dog, but there's other reels where they're just a spring that stand on their own by themselves. Okay, and then you just need to push up on that screw a little bit. And this is the way this works, is that spring is designed to hit this stud in the plate. And that's what gives you the ratcheting effect, is that tension. And roll this around, you hear that little click, and then you should be able to turn this screw and get that held together. And I wouldn't tighten this down too much just yet, but just get it in there enough. And then at this point, I like to test this and make sure that it's working. In this case, it certainly is. Okay, we're going to top this off with just a little bit more blue grease up here, like so. And that's good for the marine environments. Okay, we're going to go back in with our other screws. Yeah, I'm hoping we can revive that handle, but if it's not going to work out, I might have to replace that handle, and that too is also a costly thing, but I happen to have some spares kicking around that'll work for that, so we'll see. 2 partially threaded screws that go on the top of the bridge here. But overall, this reel's in a pretty decent shape, I'd say, considering its age. Hard to date this reel, but I want to say probably from the 60s, probably late 60s, I'm guessing, give or take a few. Okay, so we're just going to tighten these down gently, and you don't want to over tighten them. You just want to give it another quarter turn once it starts getting kind of snug, and then just kind of go back and do another eighth of a turn kind of deal. Yep. It looks pretty good. So back on with this. Spin that thumb screw up like so. That's all working good there. We'll clean up our star wheel, and then we've got our collar as well. We'll clean that up. That. You want to make sure that this is seated far enough down so that you can get this handle back on all the way. And we're taking a little 4-0 steel wool to this here right now. And we're going to see what we can do here to remedy this. Yeah, this is pretty rough, but it is breaking free, so that's a good sign. Actually, yeah, the shaft is totally still, but the torpedo is spinning, but not the shaft, and that's going to be a little problematic. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to soak this in some more penetrating oil to see if I can't free that up, but that may not be salvageable without taking that all apart. So we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so we're back again, and I was able to dig up another red marbled torpedo handle that actually spins and is in better shape. So we're gonna slap that on there, and meanwhile I'm gonna be soaking this in some PB Blaster probably for the next 24 hours or more, and see if that won't free up that shaft. If not, then it's probably a lost cause, and that happens. But yeah, just getting one of these torpedo handles alone would cost you a few bucks used on eBay. So got to get this lined up just right with that hole. And then we've got our set screw here that we're going to put in the spot here. Spin that up. Just going to hold that in position there. Okay. So there's one last thing to do, and that's try it out and see how it performs. Well, we know the clicker's working, so that's a good sign. Yeah, that's a lot better than it was, that's for sure. So we want to make sure that our spool tension is where it should be. Yeah, that's good. Check our free spool. It's hard to see, but that thing is spinning really, really well. That's a good deal there. Okay. And these actually have an anti-reverse lever on them, so if you're fighting a big fish and you just want to put it into main gear, then you have a direct drive and not rely on the drag kit too much. So that's good. And then speaking of the drag, we're going to test that out, make sure that these new washers are holding. In this case, they certainly are. So I'm going to back that off when we're not using it. That way it won't build up tension. So there you have it. That is the Penn Squidder Model 140, and it's all serviced and it's ready to go. So thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification button. And that way you'll get all the updates as to when there are new videos being posted. And I do intend to have quite a few more coming out shortly, so make sure you stay tuned for those, and we'll see you next time.